we live?
We're live.
Oh, welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I'm Jerica.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Anita, everybody.
Hi, you might remember me.
Yeah, Anita's been our guest host before, and she just happened to be here when we were recording, so we're inviting her to join us again. She didn't even do the reading materials, so...
Perfect timing.
You know, she didn't read this book that everyone should never read.
Everyone should read it. No.
But what I did see was the cover.
Yeah, which is literally how we got into this thing.
This is how we got
a story.
into
it. So I sit on my couch and I'm like, hang on, Kindle sometimes do free books. I wonder how I can find the Kindle free books. So I go to Amazon and I type in Kindle free. And it gives you all of the books that are free in Kindle. So I'm like scrolling through this. It's mostly trash. I'm not gonna lie. It was some awful ones. And then I get to this cover that grabs my attention. This cover...
Assaults your attention.
Grabs my attention. And this cover is just the torso of a man, which we love. You know we love the torso of the man.
My absolute favorite. All the abs. It just needs more and more abs, the most abs possible.
But new for this particular cover is that there's 3 babies in front of the abs. Like
naked,
blocking.
bald-headed babies on the mid-torso.
Like blocking the abs.
And they're what? Sitting upright? Like
no,
what?
They're like swaddled babies.
But they're floating in the air.
All right. So obviously I have to click on this because, oh my God, what the fuck? And it turns out that this is not the only book in this series. There's actually more.
What? There's more?
And on the next book cover is the weirdest. It's my favorite, but it's also the weirdest. It's also the torso of a man, and he's holding his arms like across his body kind of thing, balancing a baby on each hand.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Wow. Siri was really interested in that description.
She was. Oh my God. All right. Anyways. And then the number of babies become progressively more. So book number 1, there's 3 babies. Book number 2, there's 2 babies. Book number 3 is 4 babies. Then there's 5 babies. And then there's 6 babies on book number 5. So
that is too many. Is this girl carrying 6 babies at once? Because
there's different people. Because book number 2 is Buck and Rosie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're going to have twins, clearly. Anyways, so... there's 3 babies floating in front of this. So I'm like sending it to Jerica. So I'm sending this to Jerica, of course, because I'm like, what in the actual fuck is this? And you're like, oh my fucking God.
I need to read this.
We need to read this. And obviously it's free, so we're like, fine, fuck it, let's read this shit.
Because first of all, it looks like a train wreck. So
and it's
you
called...
just need to know what it's about. Secondly, it's called...
The Mountain Man's Babies.
And who doesn't love a mountain man?
A lot of people, I'm guessing, but this is called Timber, actually. Yeah. Timber, the Mountain Man's Babies. And it's written by Frankie Love.
And she's great. Great author.
I think Frankie is a man. And my reason for this is because all of the sex is written from the men's perspective only. And there's some questionable knowledge about female physiology, like anatomy there. Particularly the clenching of the pussy lips.
Lips. That just prepared for this. Snapshot. Yeah. Lip snap. Yeah. And you know what I wrote to you?
Yeah, like a Venus flytrap. Yes.
Could you imagine that the lips clench together? Yeah. Ouch. That is just severed penises all over the world.
And also, there's no fucking way. We don't have that kind of control over the lips.
There you go. There's Frankie Love. That's what she looks like.
It's a good woman.
It's a woman.
No, it's a man. It's a man. I don't believe this. Anyways, because all of the sex is written with the male gaze and from the male perspective. Yeah. It's like this woman has never had a female experience of having sex.
She's a virgin.
Yeah. But maybe the author is a virgin too. Who knows?
I don't know. Anyways, it was pretty explicit for a virgin.
Our main girl, Harper this time, right? It's not Harlow.
No, it's Harper.
Harper.
Because he calls her Harp.
He calls her Harp. The description when our main man, Jax, or Jackson, with an X, of course, meets her the first time, he describes her as fuck This girl is porn star material. Yes. Perfect double Ds pushed together, taunting me in that V-neck sweater. Yes. This is the first description of Harper, our sweet little Harper, is an extremely religious virgin girl at age 21 who has just been left a couple of weeks before her wedding by her fiancé who's been courting her for 2 years, who has never touched her, no kissing, no nothing, because that's against their church rule. Her daddy is a preacher, and she's been raised in this no vaccination, no doctors, everything is God will kind of situation.
Yikes.
Yeah. So to recover here from her being dumped by Luke, the man who's been courting her from church, she gets to borrow her uncle's cabin in the woods. That's 3 hours away from the city where they live. So she decides to drive up there in her little hatchback, and snowstorm happens. Yes. She gets stuck. Jackson has escaped the same city because his business got into some trouble when he fucked the sheriff's daughter, who turned out to be... and the sheriff is trying to fuck over the business. So he's now living in this cabin in the woods, and all he does is literally chop down wood.
Yes! Oh my gosh, I have so much to say about wood in this book. But to just recap and sum up what's happening is that Harper's car is no longer movable because she
gets stuck in the snow.
Yep. And she walks to the cabin, and here opens the door a burly, long-bearded man.
He's a hipster. He's a lumberjack hipster. Like,
muscles,
your idea of the lumberjack
everywhere.
hipster is Jackson.
Okay, he's a lumberjack hipster.
Yeah.
But the beard kept growing longer and longer over the book, and I was just like,
there were so many times where he wanted...
Ignore the beard.
How long were they together? They don't go that fast.
There were so many times where he just wants her juices in her beard.
I have so much. There's just so much juices. There's so much juice. I have
so
all
much
of the notes.
juices.
Okay, wait. So she goes. This is the set of a 1980s porno, right? Of
this book reads like a badly written porno.
At the beginning only, because then it gets too complicated for porn.
Because it's like porn star looking girl gets stuck on a mountain in a snowstorm in a hatchback, get rescued by a lumberjack hipster in a cabin, and he immediately figures out, one, that she's a virgin, two, he barely asks her name, but he knows he's gonna fuck her, and she just takes one look at this mountain man and decides 21 years of religious teachings and living this way like I believe in, it's just going to go out the fucking window because I'm going to fuck this man without knowing his last name, without knowing anything about him, because look at him. And of course, Harper here is different from all the other women that Jackson has met. He says, realizing this woman is the opposite of the women from my past who were just greedy and gluttonous like me. This woman is a goddamn angel. And then he wants her to spread her legs, and he wants to get her wet with his hard wood. And wood references in this. He refers to his penis as wood as trunk.
But no, listen to me. I marked every wood reference. So I have a number for you of the amount of times he references penis as wood.
Tell me.
It is 34 times.
This is too many times.
That wood is his penis.
30 times too many.
And so this is the book, guys. This is 1% in the book. This is how he talks. Now, instead of taking a woman hard and fast, I swing my axe. Some guys might use a chainsaw, but I like the feel of the blade biting into the wood, the power in each stroke. I take down pine trees. I call myself an old school lumberjack, but that's mostly just a joke I tell myself.
Yeah.
Do you know what my note was there?
No.
Efficiency forgotten.
For sure. But this is, honestly, I got a little bit like, I kept picturing, because you guys know that I only joined TikTok because of the hot lumberjack, right? The guy who chopped down wood. He's just chopping woods. I've shown you that.
Yes.
So in my mind, Jackson looked a bit like this guy, and I was like, this wouldn't be so bad. He's also very tattooed. He chops woods for a living. He takes care of his axe afterwards. I'm like, this sounds pretty good. But then Harper's description of him is he looks dirty. Not like need to take a shower dirty, but dirty like the man my father warned me about. Dirty like a man who knows his way around a woman.
Yes, and at the very moment I realized that this girl might be Amish. It was about at 3% where she says, but this is different. We were all shocked by Luke's choice. After all, he and I had courted.
They had courted, yeah.
For 2 years.
It's not Amish, it's Christian. This
Mormon,
is religious.
right? They're Mormon?
Kind of, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
And Harper is also described as fresh, a woman who's never been tapped.
Oh,
I don't like. Everything about her drips with innocence, but her eyes are dripping with desire as she looks at me.
There was so much dripping in this book.
Yeah.
And there are so many notes. This is chapter 1. I have 11 notes in chapter 1. And one of the notes in chapter 1, this is about how, like, the wording in the book got a little ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So he says, I don't come from gobs of money or even slivers of cash.
Okay. That's weird.
Can you explain to me what a sliver of cash is? I wrote, what even is that? Who would come from gobs of money or slivers of cash? Like, is this guy in old time land? Like, where are we? Are we in like 1700s?
But Harper is also... Jackson here can picture tossing her on the bed and spreading those legs and burying his head in what must be a perfect untouched pussy. And he's very clear about the fact that she's never been fucked.
And
she has never actually seen a man's
penis.
Parts.
No.
Parts, she says.
Okay.
I've never seen a man naked, and then she goes into crude language here. Never seen a cock, a word I use in my own head after hearing rebellious girls at church camp talk about having sex and using the word cock in their descriptions.
Are you ready for what he was doing the moment before she shows up to the cabin?
Well, I can't remember, but Jax...
He unbuttoned his shirt and then picked up the rag I've been using to polish my axe blade.
Yeah, but that's what I was talking about. This is where I got into my lumberjack TikTok fantasies, because I'm sure he does it. You need to look after that axe. He's told me many times when I watched this on TikTok. Anyways, but Jackson quite quickly figures out here that Harper's religious by saying, what, your daddy a preacher or something? Yes, yes, he is actually. So he says, "Fuck, shit, I didn't know. No wonder you're acting like a lost puppy. You've probably never been off your leash."
Yeah.
But you know, he is very arousing to Harper here because she has never experienced so much wetness down there.
Yeah.
And he forces her to clench the lips of her pussy tight.
Yes. I'm at that exact same point. Right now, I'm looking at the same page, same sentence. And he says, get her wet with my hardwood. And I wondered in this moment that is wood wet?
But the penis is not particularly wet unless it's broken and bleeding.
I said there's so much to unpack here. He's going to sleep with a stranger who shows up at his door. Porn plot. His wood, lumberjack porn plot. Can wood get something wet? Generally, wood is dry. She can introduce herself because she is currently not in an 80s porn plot yet. So she has not even introduced herself at this point. Literally, he just sharpened his axe. And when she references... I hope you're not an axe murderer.
And I have to say here, what I really struggled with in this book is she's super inexperienced, right? She's never kissed anyone, never anything. And then he's like turning up the heat in his cabin, so she's going to want to take her clothes off because it's already warm in there, but he's going to make it hotter. And so she takes off, she's like, it's really warm in here. And he's like, take off your clothes. She's like, I'm not wearing anything underneath. He's like, that's okay, take off your clothes. And then she's like, okay. And she takes off her clothes. And instead of just, you know, coming up to her and giving her a kiss or like telling her she's beautiful, what does he do? he lifts his hands to her chest, palming her beautiful lace bra. So the first time he touches her, it's not even like a kiss or, like anything. It's like straight for the boobs.
Yeah. I actually wrote here, so there's no waiting in this book.
No.
But she stares at his ass when he goes and dead bolts the door. This is a stranger. If you let me in your hot as hell cabin and then go and lock the door, do you know what I'm looking for? An exit.
Yes.
Not an ass. I'm looking for how the fuck do I get out of here?
I shall save myself for marriage, but this axe murderer here who just locked the door. Let me just take my clothes off for him. And it's just, I go back to the fact that she's never seen Dick before because she also has 9 siblings, which she has helped her mother with all this time. And I'm like,
they're not all
did
women.
you not
see? No, true.
See a penis at this point?
True.
Like,
I have a line here that I quite like.
And then my phone is a little bit of a prude, so every time I write Dick, it changes it to duck.
I
So
know.
it says in
She's
my
never
note.
seen a duck before?
No, it says here, no ducks ever in my notes.
But I have this line that I highlighted saying, I like this if it wasn't in this book. So, okay, picture us reading a different book right now.
All right.
And this, couple is, into each other. Mm-hmm. And she says, standing in this cabin, I feel a long way from church.
Yeah, then I like it, but not in this book.
Right, that's what I mean.
It's a good line.
It's a good line.
All right,
Sounds like a song.
and then we come to the full-on undressing, which he does happily, and she's so excited about seeing a dick. And it is...
Beautiful.
She says, that's so pretty, I tell him, my eyes growing wide as I take it in. His cock is a hard rod, easily 10 inches. And this is where I had to pause and do a note again, because we just watched that TikTok. Do you know how fucking large 10 inches is? This is not pleasurable here. We've talked about this before. 10 inches is too many inches.
10 inches is too many inches. It's not even good for the guy. I mean,
no, you might faint with this shit.
Right.
The thickness is more than I imagined. I thought I'd be able to put my hand around it easily, but this is much bigger than that. Bigger than ... All right.
Yeah.
So, and then immediately she's like, can I touch it? And he's like, yeah, sure. So she, down on her knees, just starts slopping away at this, and he comes straight into the back of her throat because she loves this shit. And she feels his seed in her mouth, and she realized happily that she gets to swallow this. It was very, she was very
she's a good
what
girl.
a gift.
Yeah.
His powerful
I have
seed.
been blessed by this
It's
man.
the powerful seed. It's
But
actually referred to as
He
the
says
powerful
to her,
seed.
I know where I'd like those lips of hers to go, right around my hard trunk.
Trunk. Yes.
And do you want to know something?
That just ruins it.
Not good. I do not want a trunk. That is massive. That's painful. There's lockjaw. There's so much jaw issues here. I will not even be able to talk for the rest of the month after trying to put my mouth around a trunk.
Well, he also has powerful seed, and he wants more of that creamy sex.
Ah!
And his cock is a fucking treasure. He says, my cock is a fucking treasure. And then he says to her, after this blowjob business is happening, I'm gonna fuck you so hard, Harp, I growl in her ear. So hard you won't even remember what being a virgin felt like.
Yikes. And he also says, I don't want her to think at all. And I say to that, Who would want a woman to think? How absurd of an assumption that a woman can think for herself.
Then she says, as they're having sex,
blow-up doll?
you
There we
can't
go.
stop. Please, I want this so badly it hurts. Literally hurts, Jackson. My pussy aches. Is that normal? He answers, oh honey, it's normal for women once they've seen my cock.
Yeah. Just seen.
This gift
Just the
is
visual.
not something every man can offer. It's what only I can give, and you're gonna fucking love this release. Yeah. And then he uses I use my hands to push open her fold. And I just got this image of both hands going in and like opening like a jungle parting the way. And I was like, how big is this?
Her vagina must be big to take a trunk.
And also
vagina.
hands to open her fold.
Multiple
hands.
Here's what I found.
Siri,
What did you find, Siri?
Tell us
Did
what
you find
found.
folds that need both hands
Yes,
opening?
show us pictures of vaginas that need multiple hands to open.
Yeah. He sees her tight little pussy so wet and lush like a blossoming flower full of nectar.
I have to say, I don't even think we're past chapter 4 here with these now.
This is chapter 5, actually.
Okay.
Now we're on chapter 6.
Can I say one thing before we move on?
Yeah, I need more wine.
This
so.
girl talks about this saying for the entire book that inspired her to go to the cabin in the first place and to help her get over the failed engagement with her ex Luke. And this saying is, of all sayings in the entire world, keep calm and carry on.
Do you want some more wine?
No, I'm okay. And that is the...
My brain is breaking.
Keep calm and carry on. She says it so much.
It's said so many times. I have literally wrote here, I can't hear this anymore.
Yeah.
When was this book published? When Keep Calm and Carry On was on every
I think it's 2015 or 2016.
Yeah, that's when
yeah.
Keep Calm and Carry On was on every little bag magnet. It was a thing.
And then she's getting caught in a naked in a bad boy's house. I can't remember who shows up there. I just highlighted that. Oh yeah. Went to bed last night imagining all the ways I was going to fuck her silly today. I don't want to keep her here against her will. This is how he thinks when he wakes up. In his bed. Whereas where did she sleep? On the fucking bear rug in front of the fire.
He leaves her there.
After taking her virginity. Climbing back up to his loft and going to bed.
Yeah.
And she's just there.
I need to breathe deeply.
And then Luke shows up. And Jackson's a bit upset that his dick is not hanging out because then Luke would be very jealous.
And that's where I wrote definitely written by a man because it's a penis competition and not a woman would not think of that.
He goes, if my cock were hanging out for him to see, he'd know what a threat I am.
I have to ask you though, do you know what a tight mound is? What's a mound?
But it's usually for your vagina, right?
A mound is the vagina?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
I
like
have heard that
your
before.
mons Venus. It's your Venus mound.
Yeah, I have heard this. So tight
I'm
mound.
thinking
but
about
I feel
the
like the mound is on
top
the
of it.
outside.
It's on the outside top? No? Can you have a tight top of your vagina? Maybe, possibly.
Maybe.
Who knows?
It's not good writing.
It was
I
a
think it's just
question
that.
mark
Yeah.
for me.
And then she likes herself here, Harper. She's like, the way my waist narrows, the way my large breasts hit my skin, they hang so largely on my small frame. And I'm like, yeah, this is written by a man.
Yeah.
I'm starting to agree with that more and more.
She bobs up and down on my cock as I flick back and forth against her pussy walls. There's also a description of sex in this, and there's in the like, author's note at the end. He says, "The sex is so hot, you're gonna need a vibrator."
I saw that at the end too, and I'm like, that was not my experience.
Thank you.
She says it was the best sex of her life, though, after their first experience, and let me tell you, it was the only.
Yeah, for sure. This girl is a fucking waterfall, gushing with her pussy juice in a way I never get because more women are too dried up for this kind of finger fuck.
Can I tell you?
Written by a man. Written by a man.
And this solidifies that it was written by a man. Listen, as I follow Buck, this is him talking, down the mountain in my own truck, obviously.
Obviously, because you want to get back home with your own truck.
What? I see a beautiful doe on the side of the road. Her white spots pointing to her purity. Her eyes alert, taking in the world as it passes. Once again, all I see is Harper. And you know what I thought here? This book
with the purity spots,
This book is about a tree and a deer.
Possibly. But
getting
you know
it
the
on.
deer come back later.
It's a tree and a deer. This is not even about people.
This is my next highlight here. I turn and see a
forest
deer
fantasy.
family.
It's a forest fantasy.
A 12-point buck, a beautiful mama beside him, and a small baby deer between them. And I'm like, I'm not sure deer lives in families.
The deer definitely group. They live in my backyard. They group.
But with the mamas, with the babies.
The dads are there too. The dads are there too. But then for the next two chapters, I just count 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I'm losing track. The insects need to learn how to have sex. They have sex on the forest floor. And he says he needs to prove to the insects how to have sex. And I thought, why did the insects need to learn how to have sex from a human man?
Oh, they don't. They really do not.
Forest fantasy.
Wait, I have something super exciting.
Okay, but we need to give a little bit of context here to the story because Luke shows up and she's been fucked here, and he needs to go.
He can sniff it in the air.
He realizes this, but that doesn't matter. He needs to go to Harper's car and grab her stuff and bring it down the mountain to his car because he couldn't take it all the way up. So they now have an hour before he comes back. So what do? They go right back to bed and have sex again, while waiting for him to come back. And then he brings her back. She still doesn't know Jackson's last name. He doesn't know her last name. They know nothing about... He knows that she's 21. She doesn't know how old he is. And Luke comes and brings her back to her very religious family. And her family are not impressed with her going off and sleeping with some mountain man. You know, like, this is not what their church is about.
How do they know?
How
do they know?
Because Luke had to go and get her, and she was like naked in the mountain man's cabin.
And then his first thought was like, let me ruin everyone's view and image of her. What
for sure.
No.
He's a jerk.
Everybody on her side of the family is like
absolutely awful.
All should die.
Yeah. So her family, her dad slaps her, and then she's being sequestered from her siblings because she's a bad influence. And then she realizes...
That's what I said, but okay, Mormon. They're Mormon.
Yeah, and then she realizes after a bit that, hang on, she's now late. So she takes a pregnancy test. Of course. And
she squirted her very first time having sex.
Yeah.
A virgin who squirts, interesting, unlikely. And guess what? She got pregnant from it. So none of that juice actually went out. It went all the way in.
Uh-huh. So she's pregnant, so she now figures, I'm going to need to go and tell Jackson that I am having his baby. Mm-hmm. So she goes back up the mountain, and they have sex. And then she's like, oh, and by the way, I'm pregnant. And he's like, I'll admit, hearing that she's pregnant gets me hard, turns me on, knowing my powerful seed filled her. And I'm like, written by a man, by a man.
Also, it's written by a man because... She goes back and tells him all of the sexy things she wants to do with him. And you know what they are? She wants him to give her a facial. She wants him to come all over her face.
Yeah. And her boobs.
All over her tits, all over her ass, all over her whole body. Yeah. Just slather me with cum because that is what turns on my virgin brain. And even though I've never seen a penis before or even know that stuff came out of it. But you know what? I want it on me. I want it
face.
On my skin. All come all over her gorgeous body. She doesn't have to ask twice. Yep. That's a man.
Yeah, for sure. And then the walls of her pussy are blazing hot, scorching really.
Ouch.
And then I was wondering here, is she sick? Because I'm not sure that the scorching, blazing hot pussy walls is a thing, but... Maybe. And he is a proper lumberjack hipster, so he has a kegerator in his kitchen where he has brewed his own beer that comes out of his own
I was just about to ask, what is a kegerator?
I didn't know either. He had to explain it. Yeah.
So they're doing stuff back at his cabin, and he sucks on her breast. And
he refers to it as a milky globe.
Stimulates every inch of my skin. I am so wet, I literally feel myself soaking his table. And you know what my note was here?
Is this when Buck comes over later where she wipes the table down a little bit?
I think she might be peeing. Yeah. I'm not sure that this is squirting anymore. Yeah. I think she's pregnant at this point, right? So,
so she's
it's like early pregnancy.
Yeah.
So she might be peeing because she has less control of her bladder because of where the fetus is sitting.
She's also, surprise, pregnant with triplets. So she's already showing.
I was shocked even though I saw the cover. I was still shocked.
Anyways, she's got milky globes. That's
Yeah.
her boobs. And then she wakes up.
So,
They've
hang
been having sex on the loft. And then she wakes up and she wraps a blanket around her. They have this conversation. And then she gets pissed off with him. Stand and move from the ladder. I need to leave now. I need to be somewhere safe, somewhere that I don't even know exists. And she leaves. And I'm like, she didn't get dressed.
No, and that was a continuity era. Only Leah can pick
And I
up.
went back and I read it 2 more times, seeing if I
That
missed her
is
getting dressed
unnecessary.
somewhere. But she did not get dressed. And it's not a dress that she, in this blanket, buck naked, goes out in the winter and gets in her car and drives 3 hours back to her family's house and then goes in, buck naked.
But what's the timeline here?
It's
From
been
when-
it's been
from-
about 6 weeks. 7 weeks.
Okay, so she's about 7 weeks pregnant at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
just like
And
thinking
because
science,
she leaves-
anatomy.
No, she leaves and then she's gone for 6 weeks and then she goes and sees him and then she leaves again and now she's going to be gone for about a month or so.
She leaves for 1 month and then comes
Yeah.
back.
And then
And
Yeah.
she tells him that she's pregnant with triplets.
yeah.
And they have sex, and let me tell you where. Come on, she hollers. Not car sex. I need you to take me against a tree.
Of course.
And that's
Back
when
to
I
the
wrote,
forest fantasy.
this is a forest fantasy novel. He had just seen a goddamn deer, and then she says, take me against a tree. This is about a tree and a deer, this whole
Yeah.
book.
And then Jackson has had like a month here to process this whole being pregnant business and the fact that she's not going to have an abortion, which is what he suggests the first time when she mentions being pregnant. And then she's like, no, church, religion, how can you want to kill my baby? You are an asshole. So then he's like processing this. He's like, yeah, maybe that wasn't great. I should probably go find her. I don't even know her last name. I know which city she lives in. This is going to take some fucking time finding her. But let me build this cradle. And then she comes back to him and is like, look, I got this cradle. And she's like, well, we're going to need 2 more. Because Jackson, I'm pregnant with triplets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he goes, you're the only woman I've ever met over the age of 18 who isn't on birth control, which is how he explains them getting pregnant. I'm like, always use a fucking condom. And he's like a proper manslut. Like, before Harper, he literally got chased out of the city into the woods because he slept with everything that fucking moved. So he should definitely be wearing
But
a condom.
again, this
He-
is just
yeah.
another. Sorry to jump
Yeah,
in, but
yeah.
this is another exact point in case this book was written by a man.
Yes.
Right?
He's most likely a walking fucking STD, this guy.
He's an idiot to not wrap it up.
Yeah.
But as the story progresses and we find out how conservative her and her family are, and I'm not just saying her family, like her beliefs,
Yeah.
I feel for him that it ended up being with a God-loving Mormon, like stay-at-home wife wannabe.
Yeah. No, because
I
she's
feel
awful. She has no growth.
No.
Um,
And then I say, what year is this? Why would they write notes when they have phones? She writes a note back to her family saying, I'm going to stay with Jackson for the next month. And
Yeah.
this is his like trial period of seeing if, I don't know what, he can be with her. Who knows?
Yeah.
Getting to know her, I guess.
and he thinks that she told her family she's pregnant and she didn't.
But she sends to them a note like, you have phones. There is so much other forms of
But there's
communication.
no cell service there.
Oh, then
on
you
the
know what he
mountain.
does? He
They've
goes to the
explained this.
post office and gets a note from his family. He goes into town all the time. You
Because
can
there's
get
no
notifications
service.
in a town. He goes to town to get the note, Leah.
Yeah.
When he's in town, he could send an email.
That's fucking true. You're true. That's right. But you know, and I think
Maybe it's a
that's
time warp
exactly
in the
why you're
forest.
so undone when you're with me. You think you want to tame me, but you don't. A tame man doesn't fuck like a free one.
I actually thought that was kind of clever. It's true. It's true.
And he fucks like sawing in and out, in
Because
and
he
out.
is a tree and she is a
Sawing.
deer. She's a deer.
Poor deer.
Oh, the poor deer for sure. She has a trunk entering her.
And then in chapter 20, she takes the lasagna out of the oven twice, which was
Twice.
another
I noticed that
continuity
too.
thing.
I was like, wow, that's a lot of lasagna.
Yeah, it's like, I stand, go to the kitchen, take the lasagna from the oven, pulling the hot pan from the oven, like a few lines later. And then they drive into the city without hitting any speed bumps, which I feel like this is not the right word. Like, I feel like speed traps, maybe, you
Right.
know? Because speed bumps are the actual
They're
bumps on
bumps?
the street.
I know.
And if you hit any speed bumps, you would just slow down and go slowly over them. It's not like, woohoo, made it into the city without any speed ups.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like a weird
Like,
day.
do they randomly grow at other days?
Yeah, I don't know.
So when they're discussing how their future is going to be, and this is, I think, maybe nearing the end of the month that they're together, they say, like, soon enough, it's not going to be quiet in our house. And he's like, well, that's where you're wrong. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, at the end of the day, I'm not going to want any quiet. I'm going to want you screaming my name. And that's why this is written by a man. Because let me tell you, if you're screaming after the children have gone to sleep, you are murdered. You are murdered.
Like, there's no way.
The babies need to stay asleep. You be quiet. You have quiet sex. You go outside to have loud sex. You do. You have all
Go
50
up against the tree.
You go to all the trees. Go outdoors. You are not allowed to
You're
wake
not
the
waking that baby.
goddamn
Like,
baby.
there's like penalties of waking the
3.
baby. Like, that's it. You're putting them back to bed, and that's going to take you a good hour.
I will
So
be
have
a
fun.
single mother than
You
have a
thought
man.
you were gonna have sex? No,
No.
you're not gonna put this baby back to sleep because you woke them up. You silly,
In
silly
the
person.
famous words of Pink, it's you in your hand tonight.
Yeah.
Well,
Bye.
but you know, her and Jackson, they figure shit out. So now Harper doesn't need a counselor anymore because she's in love with Jackson, and they're gonna have a life together, and her family can hate her, but it doesn't matter.
Right, and so
And then-
my chest is covered in sweat as I thrust harder in her perfect pussy, her juice pouring over my thighs. And I fucking love it when that happens, when she gushes her desire all over my skin. And this solidifies she's peeing.
She's peeing, yeah. She is peeing. Or her water
Or her
broke.
water
I was so concerned about that. I'm like, shit, her water's broken. But no, it wasn't. It was just pussy juice, like he calls it. Anyways, and then we come to the most ridiculous of all parts. So she's there, they've been living together for a month, and then he says something, and she's like, screw this, I'm gonna run away from you. I can do this on my own. I don't need you. I will be a strong, independent woman who has no job, who has no nothing. But
She
it's
has no
okay.
education.
Nothing.
Oh, no, she doesn't. No.
No. She's like, I'm gonna do this
She's
on my
like-
own. So she runs back home, and he chases her.
Does he hit speed bumps this
and
time?
then
She
she
literally
literally falls outside of her parents' house, and they do an ultrasound on the triplet to ensure that they don't have sustained zero impact from the fall. And I'm like, the babies that are in amniotic fluids in this bag, like, they'll be fine. Like, she's okay. Like, she literally tripped on a thing and fell on the ground. Like, those babies are not going to be like...
It's not a car accident. Like,
No.
And then the entire family is there waiting to hear the results. Like, the results is... Everyone's fine. I mean, she's fine. She was fine when she left. Like, what did she even? Was she just like, oh.
and then they're like, we're gonna speak to the family first, and we're gonna speak to you separately, and then we're gonna speak to you together because there's so much, there's a weird tension here, and we're gonna let the family. And then the family's
Now
like,
suddenly they care?
no, but this is the doctors, and they're like. The family's like, we don't support this. You are a disgrace. You are a ruined woman. Fuck you, basically. And then her dad's like, and Jackson left the hospital because he's like, yeah, I'm gonna marry her because I changed my entire ways. I was a manslut who never wanted to settle down, but now I'm gonna have triplets. So,
And I wrote, my problem with this is these books where the male character completely changes their personality midway or at the end of the book in order to achieve the goals of the writer, but it's so against what the personality trait is, and it's completely unbelievable.
Because that never happens.
It's just so contradictory. Like, the author wants a happy ending, so he had to write that this guy changed his personality.
yeah, fully. And Frankie Love, if you're a woman, then I
sorry.
wish that you can have some good sex in your life because you seem to have been tortured.
Her bio says she's a 30-something mother. So she probably got married at like 17
feel sorry
or something.
for you that your man cannot fuck.
You know what? It might not even be that this is her personal sex life because she has like a gazillion books. So this might just be like a complete wooden fantasy. Like, this has nothing to do with this author's personal life.
Fair enough, but has she never experienced any of these things? I feel like she has never experienced.
Did you see what they named their children?
Yes.
This
Cedar, alder, and spruce.
This book is a tree, and dear romance.
But at least Jackson's parents are like decent folk. They like find out they're gonna be grandparents, so they drive across the country to be there and support them and like actually. And then she's like, I don't want no hospital birth. I'm gonna just get God's will. And we're like, girl, you're pregnant with triplets. This is like high risk. Like, yeah, you're gonna have a hospital. And I hate that. I hate this God's will business. And this goes in my entire hatred of religion. But mostly when it comes to this, because what I really, really get angry about with this is that a midwife is fine, which is someone who has studied to help safely deliver babies, but a doctor is not, who is also someone who has studied to help safely deliver babies. So what's the difference? Like, one can save your life if you fall into like potentially life-threatening situation, and the other cannot because they don't have surgical skills and medication.
Right.
Or it could be because we think this book is written by a man, and seeing as they follow so many sickening stereotypes, probably the assumption is the midwife is female, therefore it's okay for her to see the birth canal folded open by two hands, and that the doctor is probably a male, and he shouldn't see the gushing, squirting vagina lips.
When the little treelings comes out.
Because they have treelings, and then they were let free without the 3 kids for 1 second, and this is literally just like 1 paragraph later. He says, in that case, I'll show you some wood.
Yes.
With their wood-named babies.
The end. And this was a very, very long podcast about this book, but it had to be done, because I'm sorry.
And now you know, and now you don't have to read it, but also, aren't you happy you listened to the entirety of this podcast? Because there is not a single moment that wasn't gold here.
All right, so we read Timber, The Mountain Man's Baby by Frankie Love, who is clearly a man disguised as a woman, and we do not recommend.
I mean, I do.
For the pure absurdity of it?
Oh, yes, because it's ridiculous.
Jerica will read book through 2 to 5 after this, and will give us regular updates, whereas I have already...
I'm in on the one with the six kids at one time.
You guys know I can read some pretty bad books. You guys know this. My book choice is sometimes pretty horrific, but this sounds terrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But yours is like witches that are afraid of tomatoes.
Yeah,
we're not down with that.
Yours is like weird. This is like romance bad, but it is.
But it's also bad.
It's also of the romance bad scale. Like, not so extremely bad where the writing is the writing is not poor. There's no spelling mistakes through the entire book. The content and maybe storyline could use some work, but there is no violence. Like, there is no
apart from her dad slapping her.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the romance of it.
Yeah, it's not like he's not dominating. He's not like hitting her. He's not.
No.
So, to give you an update, because last time we recorded, I did say that I was on 43 books or 45 or something like that. I made it up to 50.
Oh my gosh, she's so proud of herself.
So proud. And I did read enough book that Scribe put me in jail for the first time in a year.
Wow. Yeah. Congratulations,
Thank
Leah.
you.
You are a book addict.
But you also got lots of free books. So.
I did, because it was the Stuff You Kindle Day. And Stuff You Kindle Day was 31st of March. The next one is June 30th, just so you guys know. We can post a link to the awesome website that gives all of the recommendations for all the free Kindle books in the romance genre, where we learned so much about cinema rolls.
Next episode, we're going to tell you all about it.
Yeah,
all
and
the
Jerica would read all the titles of all the 30 books she downloaded. 31 for free Kindle Day, Stuff You Kindle Day. So
free is free, guys. Free is free.
Free is free. Until then, we love you so. Bye.
Bye.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerica Seron and Leah Sanford. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'dratherbereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.